On this episode of Time About the Movies, we have the first 6 movies of the holiday movie season of 2013, including the big screen adaptation of Orson Scott Card's Ender's Game, not Isaac Asimov, as I said yesterday. But we also have a pair of an ensemble comedy, Las Vegas, featuring Robert De Niro, Morgan Freeman, Michael Douglas, and Kevin Kline. The Thanksgiving animated comedy that became popular not for the movie itself, but more as a meme, Freebirds. Richard Curtis gives us his latest film, About Time. Matthew McConaughey and Jared Leto give us their Oscar-winning performances in Dallas Buyers Club, and Naomi Watts stars in the first of 2 Princess Diana movies in the next decade. This one definitely the worst of the 2, Diana. November 1st, 2013, let the holiday movie season commence now on Time About the Movies.
Unless we act now, Earth will be annihilated. You need the best. There's greatness in you, Ender.
What do you want me to do?
Destroy them. There's no stopping him now.
Game over.
Ender's Game, rated PG-13, in theaters and IMAX November 1st.
And welcome to Time About the Movies. Today we are taking a look at the 6 films that make up November 1st, 2013. Let's just jump on into it, because we have a lot of films to get to today. And we start off with the biggest of the new releases, and that is Ender's Game, based off of, as I said before, the novel by Orson Scott Card. It stars Asa Butterfield from Hugo, starring in his first film since that film, as Andrew Ender Wiggin, a gifted child sent to an advanced military academy in space to prepare for a future alien invasion, where the cast also includes Harrison Ford, Ben Kingsley, Viola Davis, Haley Steinfeld, and Abigail Breslin among its cast. Now, the last time Gavin Hood took on a big blockbuster project, that was X-Men Origins Wolverine. In fact, that was actually the last film he directed, and let's just say, didn't work out so well for him. This one is definitely a lot better, although I won't say it's a great, straightforward adaptation of the book. I mean, if you're looking for that, you're looking in the wrong place for this one, but it's more like a movie that's it's like Summon Entertainment's trying to create their own Hunger Games style franchise out of this, and this wasn't a gigantic hit. In fact, it actually underperformed off of a $110 to $115 million budget. It actually lost nearly $70 million for the studio. But I'll say this, it's actually good, a pretty good movie. Not a great movie overall, but it's a story that is very much something where you can connect with the main characters overall. You do see Asa Butterfield's potential as a leading actor after his success with Hugo, and he would have a couple of other movies down the road where he'd be okay in it overall. The cast overall here is really good. Ben Kingsley gives probably one of his best supporting performances in a movie, even though he's got that makeup like he's the villain from the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie. I mean, what the hell was that about? But yeah, if you're going into this looking for a straightforward adaptation of the book, you're going to be seriously disappointed by it. But if you go into it knowing that it's going to be a fun action-adventure film, kind of like a teenage equivalent to something like Starship Troopers, except not as silly and always over the top, you can find a lot of value in this movie. I know I certainly did. It was a movie that I wasn't expecting a whole lot of, but I actually bought it because the Steelbook was at Best Buy when they had, remember the glory days when Best Buy had Steelbooks and movies? I know it feels like it's only been a couple of years, but yeah, it feels like it's been longer than that. But yeah, saw it on a blind buy, grabbed it in there, watched it, and I was actually really impressed by what I saw from it. It was actually not as bad as people made it out to be. It's actually not that bad of a movie overall. It's a fine film for what it is. It's definitely not the book, but hey, it made for an entertaining film overall. For a one-time watch, I'd recommend it, but other than that, though, it's not one you're going to want to watch over and over again, so it's worth it, though. Ender's Game is definitely worth it, so. Let's go ahead and move on to our next movie. Michael Douglas, Robert De Niro, Kevin Kline, and Morgan Freeman starring in John Turteltaub's Las Vegas.
I'm getting married.
Hey, tell her she's making a huge mistake.
Welcome to Las Vegas.
I owe you this one.
Sounds like the same song over and over again. I probably should get up and dance. Maybe I'll give it a shot. Maybe not. Maybe now. Everything's spinning. Oh, no.
Rated PG-13.
Coming this fall on CBS. No, seriously, this is a CBS film, and yeah, that trailer clearly makes it look like a pilot for a CBS TV series. But unlike some of the other CBS films, This one's actually one of the better ones. Not a great film overall, but certainly is a lot better than some of the other films we've covered from them. The premise here is pretty much just an older version of The Hangover. We have 3 retirees traveling to Las Vegas to have a bachelor party for their last remaining single friend. You also have Mary Steenburgen also in here, as well as Jerry Ferrero from Entourage, Romany Malco, Joanna Gleason, Roger Bart. So there are some notable names in here. In fact, Jack Nicholson was at one point attached to the project early in development. So my guess is probably they were probably put up for the Kevin Kline role in general here, but this is what you think it is. It's an old guy version of The Hangover, but that's not saying it's a bad movie overall. It has its moments, and you do like the chemistry between the 4 leads. You can buy them as best friends in this situation here. And yeah, it's not going to go to the insane levels that the Hangover movies have gone, especially with the sequels, which is probably a good thing for that, because the sequels are terrible. But it is what it is. It delivers a fine, entertaining movie overall. It kind of reminded me a lot of another very underrated comedy with a bunch of older guys at the front of it, The Crew, with Burt Reynolds, Richard Dreyfuss, Peter Falk, and Seymour Cassel, which was a very underrated movie when it came out. I actually thought that movie was really funny and very well done. This one's not quite on that level, but it did remind me a lot of that movie in general. Kind of like a mix between that and also another one that came out around that time, Space Cowboys, with Clint Eastwood and a bunch of other older guys going up into space and all that. There's a little bit of a mix in that in this movie in general, and I kind of thought it worked overall. Not a great movie overall, but again, kind of like with Ender's Game, definitely a lot better than people made it out to be, and definitely a lot better than it could have been, especially considering it's a CBS Films movie. And like I said, CBS Films usually has movies that literally look like rejected pilots for TV shows that they never picked up, and this definitely feels like a show like they wanted to try to create their own TV version of The Hangover, but with older guys. But like I said, it works for what it is. It's fine, nothing too amazing about it, but it works for what it is. I'd recommend it if you want to see something more lighthearted overall. But with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, and that is Freebirds.
I'm not gonna dress it up. Turkeys are dumb. Really dumb. You don't get it! They're fattening us up to eat us!
Hey, corn!
See you later, Reggie!
From the Academy Award-winning producer of Shrek.
We came to this farm for my favorite presidential tradition. Pardon the Thanksgiving turkey.
And the director of Horton Hears a Who.
Don't worry, you're safe. I'm tired now. This is your new home!
Pizza!
Does it get any better than this?
Hello, soldier. Whatever you do not make a sound.
You've been recruited for a top secret mission.
What are you talking about? We're going back in time to the first Thanksgiving to get turkeys off the menu. Who are you talking to? This guy right here. He totally gets it.
And that's all the movie is known for. The turkeys literally saying, we're going to go back in time and take turkeys off the menu for Thanksgiving. I mean, it's about as stupid as you get of a movie in general here. And they do it by going back in time because in this universe, the president is they have a time machine is near the White House or something like that. I think it was like I can't remember what it was. I think it's at Camp David, actually, was where they had the time machine at. But this is directed by Jimmy Haywood, but they say he's the director of Horton Hears a Who. But remember, he also directed Jonah Hex. So, yeah, and this was the last movie he directed, too. So this is like a 5-year span, going from a successful movie in Horton Hears a Who, one of the better Dr. Seuss adaptations we've gotten, to one of the worst DC comic movies ever made, to a movie that has become popular, not for the movie itself, but because of the memes that this film has had behind it. And how does this plan work overall? You wouldn't believe me if I told you, because their plan to go back in time to take turkeys off the menu, they do it, and guess what they replace it with? Not just pizza. Not just any pizza. No. No, it has to be Chuck E. Cheese pizza. That is literally the plot of the movie. Chuck E. Cheese is all over this movie in terms of the marketing. You even see it a little bit in the trailer there of Reggie ordering all this Chuck E. Cheese pizza. It's just like I get it. Chuck E. Cheese pizza was good when you were a kid, but there's no reason that Chuck E. Cheese pizza has to be the main course for Thanksgiving now. It's just like, this is a really dumb movie in general. Sometimes Owen Wilson and Woody Harrelson will get a laugh every once in a while because those two have good chemistry together. And Amy Poehler has some good moments in here as well, but this is not a good movie overall. It's a pretty lazy film. It's a lackluster movie that the only thing it has it going for it is the fact that it's nicely animated from real FX Creative Studios, who would later go on to do The Book of Life, and also would go on to work on other movies like they recently just did the SpongeBob movie Search for SquarePants, as well as Scoob and a bunch of other projects that you're very familiar with overall. But yeah, this definitely is one of those movies that didn't become popular because, oh, it's actually a really good movie overall. No, they saw that scene where Woody Harrelson's character is talking about his plan to go back in time to take turkeys off the menu, and that became a meme all around. It's just like, nobody cares about the movie itself. They only care about that in general. Just like, when they actually tell them, hey, have you seen the movie? It's just like, no, there's a movie behind that? Like, they don't know what this movie's about. They don't care about, they don't even know this movie even exists. They just know that scene exists. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. It just didn't work for me. It's just not a good movie. It's a movie that's trying to be the next Thanksgiving classic, and it didn't work. It just didn't work for me. But that's just me personally, so anyway, that is Freebirds. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which, oh boy, this was a major disappointment. Not quite as bad as One Day, but came pretty close. About Time.
Of Love Actually comes his next great chapter about love.
Tim.
I'm Mary.
It's my mother's name.
I remind you of your mother?
So the men in the family can travel in time. I love your eyes. Having looked further down, I'm sure it's all fantastic.
Rachel McAdams is irresistible.
I'm sure it'll be better next time.
Well done. Some people make a real mess of it the first time.
Amateurs.
In the feel-great film of the year, About Time. Now playing select theaters everywhere Friday.
Yeah, spoiler alert, this ain't another Love Actually. Love Actually is a far superior movie than this is. I make it seem like this is a terrible movie, but it's really not. It's just kind of a letdown because it goes in a predictable territory with a premise that starts off really strong. At the age of 21, you have Tim Lake, played by Domhnall Gleeson, who discovers he can travel in time. The night after another unsatisfactory New Year's party, Tim's father, played by Bill Nighy, tells his son that the men in his family have always had the ability to travel through time. Tim can't change history, but he can change what happens and has happened in his own life, so he decides to make the world a better place by getting a girlfriend. Sadly, that turns out not to be as easy as you might think. Moving from the Cornwall coast to London to train as a lawyer, Tim finally meets the beautiful but insecure Mary, played by Rachel McAdams. They fall in love, then an unfortunate time-traveling incident means he's never met her at all. So that means for the first time, again and again, he has to meet her again and again for the first time, but finally, after a lot of cunning time travel, he wins her heart. Tim then uses his power to create the perfect romantic proposal to save his wedding from the worst best man speeches, to save his best friend from professional disaster, to get his pregnant wife to the hospital in time for the birth of their daughter, despite a nasty traffic jam outside of Abbey Road. But as his unusual life progresses, Tim finds out that his unique gift can't save him from the sorrows and ups and downs that affects all families everywhere. There are great limits to what time travel can achieve, and it can be dangerous too. And like I said, Richard Curtis is a great director. He's made some of the best romantic comedies of all time. Bridget Jones's Diary, Love Actually. So I was surprised when I heard that this was supposed to be his last film as a director. And I thought that the movie was just okay. I mean, he does leave it on a good enough note where his career could have ended there. But of course, he later go on to write a bunch of other movies. He wrote Yesterday with directed by Danny Boyle. But this one in particular, I think the performances really are the selling points of the movie. They are well done. Everyone in the cast does a really good job in here. Gleeson and McAdams have great chemistry together. You buy into the chemistry between Gleeson and Nighy as well. It's the strongest portion of the movie, and it does run fairly smoothly. The movie's 2-hour time limit doesn't feel like it's lagging or forcing itself in your face, but there are a lot of flaws to the movie, and mostly the plot holes. So Tim's father explains the rules of time travel. So 1, only male members of the family can travel in time. 2, only backwards travel in time is possible. And 3, traveling back in time before your child was born will cause a different child to be born and the original child will be lost. So here's the thing. 2 of those rules get broken. There's a scene where Tim takes his sister to the past to find out when she met his husband, who ends up beating her and causing her to get into an accident. And automatically, that breaks the first rule right there, because it proves that not only men can travel back in time. The other is when Tim takes his sister back in time and realizes that when he comes back, his daughter is now suddenly turned into a boy. But when he fixes everything, everything goes back to normal, even though his father literally tells him beforehand that traveling back before the child was born means the girl he has would disappear, and yet somehow, when he does fix everything, his daughter returns. So either Tim's father is fucking with him or doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, or Curtis really messed up big time here. And my other problem with this is that they never give an explanation to why this is happening. Tim just naturally accepts that he can go back in time. And I get it. In Groundhog Day, you never knew why Phil Connors was living the same day over and over again. But you can make the argument that the reasoning behind this was because he had to change his ways. Here, they don't even give an indication of how this is even possible. They don't even explain it all, because it feels like the movie doesn't want to explain it to people, because if they did, then the female audiences who are going to go see this movie are going to be like, boring, and just start talking with their gal pals. I mean, that's probably what would have happened if they added it in there, but it would have been nice to have it in there, so we would have had a better understanding of what is causing all this to happen. But yeah, I made this out to be as bad as One Day, but it is not as bad as One Day. One Day just fails miserably because it's a good movie that falls into a steaming pile of garbage when one scene happens, when Anne Hathaway's character gets killed off, and Jim Sturgis gets put into this major tailspin that nearly ends his life as a whole. That was not, and that ruins the flow of the film. These don't ruin that per se, but it really bothered me when I saw it the first time, and it really took me a long time to get back and see it again, to give it another shot. And as bad as those plot holes still are, I still enjoyed the movie solely because of the performances, the characters behind it, between the chemistries between the main stars, and the story is a very intriguing film idea, despite the plot holes and the time travel elements. There are very interesting concepts overall in here, and I feel like with a rewrite, they probably could have added much more to it to make it more make more sense for the audience. But it has a lot of problems, but I like it enough to say for a one-time watch it's worth it, but you're never going to want to watch this again after the first time. Like I said, Richard Curtis has made a lot better movies than this, and this definitely is not one of those better films. So anyway, that's about time. So let's go ahead and move on to Matthew McConaughey and Jared Leto's Oscar-winning performances in Gus Van Sant's Dallas Buyers Club.
Ain't nothing out there can kill Ron Woodruff in 30 days.
Critics and audiences are raving about Dallas Buyers Club. It's hugely entertaining, deeply moving, the crowd pleaser that's not to be missed. Winner of 2 Golden Globe Awards, and now it's been nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Actor Matthew McConaughey, Best Supporting Actor Jared Leto, and Best Picture of the Year.
I got one life. In the meantime,
Dallas Buyers Club, rated R, now back in theaters.
And this is why I need to do my fucking research before I start doing these reviews, because this is not directed by Gus Van Sant. This is actually directed by Jean-Marc Vallée, the late Jean-Marc Vallée, who just recently passed away about 4 years ago. But he's made a couple movies I've liked of his. This one, and also the Reese Witherspoon movie Wild, and he was also involved in Big Little Lies. But yeah, I made the mistake of making it seem like Gus Van Sant directed this movie, even though it does look like kind of like a Gus Van Sant movie when you really look at it. But anyway, this is about Ron Woodruff, played by Matthew McConaughey, who's a cowboy diagnosed with AIDS in the mid-1980s, a time when both the etiology and the treatment of HIV/AIDS are poorly understood, and it suffers subject to stigma. As part of an ongoing experimental AIDS treatment movement, Woodruff smuggles unapproved pharmaceutical drugs into Texas to treat his symptoms. Here he distributes them to fellow people with AIDS by establishing the Dallas Buyers Club, all the while facing opposition from the Food and Drug Administration. 2 fictional characters, played by Jennifer Garner and Jared Leto, were composite roles created from interviews for transgender AIDS patients, activists, and doctors. And really, this is a movie where it's literally begging for an Oscar, but it's a movie where the performances are good enough that it does carry the film overall to making it an entertaining film overall. I mean, this was Matthew McConaughey at his peak. This is the movie where he finally won the Oscar he long deserved, and basically changed his career around altogether. I mean, he was no longer the buff romantic comedy guy that was starring in movies with Kate Hudson, Sarah Jessica Parker, who else was he in? Who else was it? I think it was maybe just Matthew McConaughey. I think it was just Kate Hudson and Sarah Jessica Parker, maybe. I have to think about it, but Jennifer Garner was also in Ghost of Girlfriend's Past, but that was actually one of the better Matthew McConaughey movies, and I think that was the movie that really kind of started the career renaissance of Matthew McConaughey, of getting him back on track to who he was before he became the rom-com guy in the 2000s. Because remember, this guy started his career off as a good, serious, dramatic actor. He was in stuff like Boys on the Side, A Time to Kill, Contact, Amistad, and then all of a sudden he makes these movies like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days and Failure to Launch and Fool's Gold, and people forget about the fact that this guy was taken as seriously as a dramatic actor, and then he just became the rom-com guy. But then Ghost of Girlfriend's Past, I think, really was that turning point for him, because following that, his career took a huge upswing back to where it was before, and it culminated with him winning an Oscar for this, and leading into a year where he would also be seen in The Wolf of Wall Street, and also be in True Detective with Woody Harrelson. And for Jared Leto, this was a big thing for him because he won the Best Supporting Actor Oscar and basically elevated his film career as a whole, because he was in movies before this, but before that he was mostly known for his music work with 30 Seconds to Mars. But, after he won the Oscar for this, he was in stuff like Suicide Squad, playing the Joker, Blade Runner 2049, House of Gucci. Even though his career now has been very polarizing with stuff like Morbius and more recently Tron Ares, but that's not a bad actor. I think he gets a bum rap sometimes, but even though some of his movies are very much not good films, but here you can see why he won the Oscar for it, because he really is great in this role. Jennifer Garner is also very good in here too. People forget that she was one of those people that, was going to be this big rom-com actress overall, but then she went back to doing more serious stuff like this, and also, again, in Ghost of Girlfriend's Past, but this is a good movie. Not a great movie overall. It does have that type of a feel of an Oscar bait movie, but it's an Oscar bait movie that actually does work because the performances are so good, and you want to stick with it because of that. And for that, I give the movie a little bit more credit than I think most people would. It's a good movie, not a great film overall, but it works because the performances are all so good, and it really helped to elevate these guys' careers who won Oscars because of this. And it's a really good movie. Dallas Buyers Club is one I highly recommend checking out. So with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last movie that we have here, and that is Naomi Watts as Princess Diana in Diana.
If I marry you, I have to marry the whole world as well.
That's not possible.
Anything's possible.
I am a surgeon! I can't work with the paparazzi sticking their cameras in my face!
He would have made a more convincing argument if he said that like this.
I am a surgeon! I am a surgeon! I am a surgeon!
So Diana tells the story of Princess Diana, who was celebrated and adored by millions. She was the queen of people's hearts, yet the bittersweet story of the last man to truly capture her heart has never been told. Princess Diana, at one time the most famous woman in the world, inspired her nation with her generosity, compassion, and kindness, and in her final year she met the man, Dr. Hassan Khan, played by Naveen Andrews, who in turn inspired her. But, this movie got thrashed when it came out. It was a movie that was heavily criticized. It didn't help when someone at the company that was putting this out in the UK said, we have posters for this. I have a great place to put this at. Let's put this in the Place de la Mama in Paris. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? In case you don't remember, that's where Princess Diana was killed in 1997. So you can kind of see why somebody would have looked at that and gone like, you selfish son, you incentive son of a bitch. And so they basically just took it off of there. But it's just like, you made this movie and you don't even know where she was killed at. Like, really? Like, that's just one of the many problems that this fucking movie has. This is a terrible movie because, my God, this film is such a clustered mess of a film. This is a movie where the script is just god-awful. This is one of those movies that could have easily been a Lifetime movie of the week if it had not had Naomi Watts in the leading role of this. I mean, Naomi Watts is probably the best thing about the movie overall, but even then, she's not great in this. I mean, she's also very much has a lot of problems with this movie, and just the film itself is just such a disgusting representation of this person. Like, this film feels like a film that was made by the royal family, who clearly did not like her, clearly had a problem with her, because let's be honest, they really have a problem with anybody that comes into their family. I mean, just look at what happened with Meghan Markle, for God's sakes. But then again, it doesn't help that you have the same director that made The Invasion and also made another memeable movie, Downfall, the Hitler movie, which led to the great memes with him. But yeah, this movie is bad. This is a terrible, terrible film. The actors are trying their best, but even they can't save this terrible script. This is an awful script, and it does nothing to make this woman seem like the person that everyone knew her for. Like, people did like Princess Diana. Like, they did. And this movie this movie feels like it was made by people who hated her. Because it's just like, we're going to make this person the most detestable person possible. And it's a really bad movie, man. It's a really bad film. It's so bad that it took them 8 years later to get a better Princess Diana movie out there with Kristen Stewart called Spencer, which is a really good movie. Nope. This is pretty bad. So yeah, avoid Diana like the plague. If you want to see a good Princess Diana movie, see Spencer, not this garbage. And thus, with all that said, we wrap up another episode of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, we have the return of Thor and his sequel to his film from a couple years ago, Thor: The Dark World. We see what he's been doing since the Avengers ended. We also have The Book Thief, and that's actually about it. We don't have any other movies of noteworthiness after that, but yeah, only 2 movies to take a look at tomorrow, Thor: The Dark World and also The Book Thief. So we'll take a look at both of those movies tomorrow on the show, so stay tuned for that. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and do me the honors of hitting that like button, that subscribe button, and that notification button. Also, don't forget to check out our playlist, and don't forget to check out the previous episode we did. Now, with all that said, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. Take care.